Welcome back to another episode where we dive deep into the psychology and strategy that separate consistently profitable traders from the rest. I'm excited to share with you today what might be the most powerful revelation in my trading journey: why simplicity consistently outperforms complexity in the markets. Have you ever stared at your trading screen, overwhelmed by indicators, lines and colors, only to watch your account balance shrink despite all that analysis? What if I told you that the most successful traders in history built fortunes using setups so simple they could be explained on the back of a napkin? You know, in this business of speculation, most people lose not because the market is too hard to read, but because they make it too hard to read. They clutter their charts with lines and colors, listen to every voice in the crowd, and then wonder why their account keeps leaking money. Has this ever happened to you? That moment when you're frozen with indecision because one indicator says buy while another screams sell. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the globe, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. What Richard Wyckoff discovered decades ago still holds true today. A simple setup beats 95% of traders, and I'm not exaggerating that number. The market's greatest fortunes weren't built on complex algorithms or intricate systems. They were built on clarity of vision and disciplined execution. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share could fundamentally change how you approach the markets. This isn't about having fewer indicators on your chart, though that's part of it. This is about having fewer doubts when you execute. It's about the psychological freedom that comes from knowing exactly what you're looking for and having the conviction to act when you see it. Think about the last time you hesitated on a trade that later moved exactly as you predicted. What stopped you? For most traders, it wasn't lack of information, it was information overload. The paradox of modern trading is that the tools designed to give us certainty often breed the opposite. What you're about to discover might surprise you, especially if you've been chasing the latest indicators or trading systems. The professionals, those who survive decade after decade in this game, rely on methods so simple they seem almost primitive compared to what most retail traders use. They don't need 5 oscillators to tell them what's coming when price builds pressure under resistance. The market speaks a language of supply and demand, of human fear and greed. It's been speaking this same language for centuries, and when you strip away all the noise, you'll find that its message is remarkably clear. The question is, are you ready to listen to what it's really saying? Let me pull back the curtain on a hidden truth in trading that transformed my own journey. Simplicity in trading isn't about being simplistic, it's about precision. When I first realized this distinction, it completely rewired my decision-making process. Many traders confuse complexity with sophistication, as if adding more indicators somehow makes them more professional. But the real revelation comes when you understand that the masters of this craft, those who've weathered decades of market cycles, do the exact opposite. They strip away everything non-essential until only the core truth remains. I remember watching an interview with a legendary fund manager who managed billions. His trading station, a single monitor with a clean price chart, no oscillators, no Fibonacci retracements, no rainbow-colored indicators, just price and volume. When asked why, his answer was profound. The market already tells me everything I need to know. Why would I dilute that message? This mindset shift doesn't happen overnight. We're culturally conditioned to believe that more is better, that complexity equals intelligence. But in trading, this assumption becomes a liability. The cleanest charts, the quietest setups, the most obvious support and resistance levels, these aren't just easier to trade, they're statistically more reliable. Think about the last truly profitable trade you made. Chances are it wasn't complex. It was probably a setup. So clear that even a novice could have spotted it. The difference is that you had the discipline to execute when that opportunity presented itself. If you're serious about mastering the markets with simplicity and precision, hit that subscribe button now. I share these proven trading principles every week that the Wall Street crowd doesn't want you to know. That's the real edge professionals have. Not secret indicators or complex algorithms, but unwavering discipline applied to straightforward methods. They know that trading success isn't about predicting the future with perfect accuracy. It's about recognizing high probability scenarios and managing risk when those scenarios play out. When price builds pressure under a major resistance level, you don't need 5 different oscillators to tell you what might happen. Your understanding of market structure, the accumulation of buying pressure, the failure of sellers to push prices lower, already provides that insight. The chart itself speaks volumes if you've trained yourself to listen. I once thought my trading needed to look complicated to be effective. Charts with multiple time frames, indicators layered upon indicators, alert systems triggering constantly. It wasn't until I lost a significant portion of my capital that I realized all that complexity wasn't helping me make better decisions. It was paralyzing me with analysis paralysis. The greatest impact on my trading came not from adding tools, but from removing them. With each indicator I eliminated, my clarity increased. With each simplification of my process, my execution improved. This wasn't coincidence, it was cause and effect. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining exactly how patience plays into this equation, because simplicity without patience is like having a powerful weapon without knowing when to use it. The transformation happens when you combine these elements. Write in the comments, simplicity is precision. If this perspective has challenged how you view your trading charts, patience in trading might be the most underrated skill, yet it's the hallmark of every successful market veteran I've studied. There's a profound difference between waiting for your setups and forcing the market to give you something that simply isn't there. This distinction represents a crucial mindset shift that separates professionals from the perpetually struggling. Most traders approach the market with a hunter's mentality. They wake up each day determined to find opportunities, convinced they need to be active to be profitable. They jump from setup to setup, chart to chart, time frame to time frame, desperate to find the move they can capitalize on. But the market doesn't reward this kind of desperation. It rewards the patient observer. I learned this lesson through a painful journey of overtrading. For years, I believed that more trades meant more potential profit. I'd force entries when my criteria were almost met, justify positions that didn't quite align with my rules, and wonder why my results were inconsistent at best. The revelation came when I started treating trading less like hunting and more like farming, planting seeds and patiently waiting for harvest time. Tell me honestly, do you wait for your setup to come to you, or do you force the market to give you something that isn't there? This question cuts to the core of trading psychology and reveals a truth most aren't ready to accept. What makes this challenge even more difficult is what I call the clarity paradox. Our brains are wired with a fundamental misconception that more information equals better decisions. In most areas of life, this seems logical. Want to make a better choice? Gather more data. But trading flips this assumption on its head. Behind the scenes of great trading is not more analysis, but better filtering. The market already provides everything we need to know. It shows when demand overpowers supply, when momentum is building, and when exhaustion is setting in. Adding layers of indicators doesn't enhance this message, it obscures it. Think of it like listening to someone speak in a quiet room versus a crowded party. In the quiet room, you hear every word clearly. Add more noise, and suddenly you're straining to understand, missing key points, and possibly misinterpreting what's being said. Your charts work the same way. This paradox explains why so many traders feel stuck in analysis paralysis. They've created an environment where clear signals are drowned out by noise, where decisive action becomes impossible because there's always another indicator to check, another time frame to consult, another opinion to consider. The breakthrough comes when you realize that clarity doesn't emerge from complexity, it emerges from simplicity. When you strip away the unnecessary, the essential becomes visible. This principle transcends trading and applies to virtually every complex decision in life. The question then becomes not what to add to your analysis, but what to remove. What indicators are redundant? What timeframes are distracting? What market opinions are clouding your judgment rather than enhancing it? Let's explore how the market's natural rhythm reveals itself when we stop trying to force our own interpretations onto price action and instead learn to recognize the patterns that have existed since trading began. Drop "patient observer" in the comments if you've realized that waiting for the right setup beats chasing every possible opportunity. When you truly understand market rhythm, a profound transformation happens in your trading journey. Markets aren't random. They move in predictable waves of expansion, contraction, accumulation, and distribution. These patterns have existed since the first exchanges opened their doors centuries ago, and they'll continue long after we're gone. Why? Because they're not technical artifacts. They're human behavior written in price bars. Think of price charts as a psychological blueprint of the crowd. Fear, greed, hope, and capitulation. All these emotions leave their fingerprints on every time frame. Once you recognize this truth, the market begins to speak to you in a language far more reliable than any indicator could provide. Richard Wyckoff understood this decades ago. He observed that markets don't move in straight lines, but in rhythmic cycles that reflect the ongoing battle between smart money and the masses. The large players accumulate quietly before markup phases, distribute near tops, and then watch as prices mark down when retail investors finally capitulate. This dance is as old as markets themselves. Behind every candle is a story. A moment where buyers and sellers negotiated and one side prevailed. When you learn to read these stories without the noise, you begin to see opportunity where others see only chaos and uncertainty. The market's message becomes crystal clear, not because you've added more analysis, but because you've developed the right lens through which to view price action. This clarity leads us to a powerful revelation I call the two confirmations principle. One of the most liberating discoveries in my trading evolution was realizing I didn't need 10 confirmations before taking action. I just needed the right two, one from price itself and one from my conviction. Everything beyond these essential confirmations is merely hesitation disguised as analysis. We add layers of validation not because they improve our decision-making, but because they delay the moment of truth, the moment we must act despite uncertainty. Consider how often you've watched a perfectly good setup unfold, yet hesitated because you were waiting for just one more indicator to align, one more time frame to confirm, one more reason to feel certain. And how often did that extra confirmation arrive just in time for you to enter at a worse price, or miss the move entirely? The power doesn't come from gathering endless signals. It comes from recognizing which signals matter and having the courage to ignore the rest. This takes emotional maturity, a quality rare among traders but essential for consistent success. I've found that the most reliable confirmations are often the simplest. Price breaking a key level with increased volume, or a change in market structure from lower highs to higher highs. When these align with your understanding of the current market phase, accumulation, markup, distribution, or markdown, you have everything you need to act with confidence. The deeper insight here extends beyond trading. In almost every complex domain, the ability to filter signal from noise, to focus on what truly matters while ignoring distractions, creates a decisive advantage. Let's examine how this principle transforms trading from gambling into a legitimate business operation. Drop "2 is enough" in the comments if you've realized that seeking endless confirmation is really just fear in disguise. The fundamental shift that transforms amateur traders into professionals isn't about better indicators or more complex strategies. It's about adopting a business mindset. Trading is a business of observation and execution, not excitement or entertainment. This revelation often marks the turning point in a trader's journey from consistent losses to sustainable profits. Consider how differently you approach decisions when wearing your business owner hat versus your thrill seeker hat. A business owner focuses on processes, risk management, and long-term profitability. They aren't swayed by emotional highs and lows. They analyze data dispassionately and execute plans methodically. Ready to transform your trading with timeless market wisdom? Subscribe now and join thousands of traders who've discovered that less complexity leads to more profits. I've observed a direct correlation in my own trading. The more I craved excitement, the faster my capital disappeared. The more I craved clarity, the faster it grew. This isn't coincidence, it's cause and effect. Trading for excitement means taking impulsive positions, ignoring risk parameters, and chasing the dopamine rush of being right. Trading as a business means patiently waiting for edge-driven opportunities and protecting capital at all costs. Your trading capital represents your soldiers in this financial battlefield. Would you send soldiers into combat without reconnaissance, without a strategy, without an escape route? Of course not. Yet traders routinely deploy capital with no clear plan beyond "I think it's going up." This cavalier approach to risk betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of what trading truly is. When you embrace trading as a business, your focus shifts from prediction to probability, from hoping to planning. You become less concerned with being right and more concerned with being profitable over time. This mental framework creates space for the development of a rule set, your personal trading constitution. A simple setup provides rules you can follow consistently through all market conditions. You know your entry with absolute precision, not somewhere around this level, but exactly where your order should be placed. You know your stop without ambiguity, not "I'll exit if it looks bad," but at a specific price that invalidates your thesis. You know your profit target based on structure, not wishful thinking. This clarity removes emotion from the equation. The market either fulfills your plan or it doesn't. When it doesn't, you step aside without regret or frustration. No single trade defines you. When the market does fulfill your plan, you ride the move with confidence, not second-guessing every tick or headline. Behind the scenes of every successful trader is this ruthless commitment to process over outcome. They understand that while they cannot control the market, they have complete control over how they respond to it. They find freedom in this distinction, relieved of the impossible burden of predicting an unpredictable system. I remember the transformation in my own trading when I stopped viewing positions as opinions to defend and started seeing them as business decisions to evaluate. Losing trades were no longer personal failures, but expected cost of doing business. Winning trades weren't validations of my intelligence, but proper execution of a proven edge. This mindset shift doesn't happen overnight, but it begins with recognizing that simplicity creates consistency, and consistency creates results. Let's explore how this simple approach holds up under the intense pressure that all traders inevitably face. Type "business mindset" in the comments if you've realized that treating trading as a business rather than entertainment was a game changer for your approach to the markets. The true test of any trading approach isn't how it performs during calm markets, it's how it holds up under extreme pressure. When candles are moving rapidly, when your position suddenly moves against you, when headlines flash across the screen and your heart rate spikes, that's when the power of simplicity truly reveals itself. Under pressure, the mind doesn't have the bandwidth for complexity. When adrenaline floods your system, your cognitive capacity narrows dramatically. This physiological response, hardwired into our biology from ancient survival mechanisms, creates a crucial vulnerability for traders with complex systems. In those critical moments, you don't have time to check 5 indicators, 3 time frames, and a dozen variables. You only have time to act. I experienced this watershed moment during a volatile market session years ago. I was holding a significant position when unexpected news hit the wires. Price gapped violently against me, and in those few seconds, every complex aspect of my trading plan evaporated from my mind. All that remained was the simple core, my invalidation point. Because that single number was crystal clear in my planning, I could execute decisively despite the chaos unfolding on my screen. This crystallizing moment transformed my entire approach to market engagement. I realized that simplicity isn't just aesthetically pleasing, it's functionally essential during crisis moments. A simple plan becomes your anchor when everything else is in flux. It's the difference between emotional reaction and strategic response. The psychological dimension of this principle extends beyond trading into any high-pressure decision-making arena. Emergency room doctors don't rely on complex diagnostic trees during a crisis. They follow clear, practiced protocols. Fighter pilots don't improvise during engine failure. They execute simple, rehearsed procedures. This pattern reveals a universal truth. Simplicity enables clarity under pressure. When your trading plan is simple, the logic behind each position remains accessible even when stress hormones are flooding your system. You remember exactly why you took the trade in the first place. The criteria that validated your entry remain visible in your mind. This clarity becomes a shield against emotional hijacking. Contrast this with complexity. When your strategy involves multiple conditions, filters, and exceptions, it becomes extraordinarily fragile under pressure. The moment uncertainty spikes, you start second-guessing. Was this indicator supposed to cross before or after that level broke? Should I be looking at the 15-minute chart or the hourly for confirmation? This hesitation opens the door for emotional decision-making, the exact thing your system was designed to prevent. The cascading effect is predictable. You shift your stop loss just a little to give the trade room. You adjust your target because suddenly it seems unrealistic. You abandon parts of your plan that feel inconvenient in the moment. These compromises are how traders lose not just money, but something far more valuable: confidence in their own decision-making. The irony is that most traders add complexity believing it will make them more confident. In reality, it makes them more vulnerable precisely when they need stability most. Let's examine how this principle of simplicity under pressure connects to the deeper concept of building trust through repetition. Type "pressure tested" in the comments if you've experienced how a simple plan becomes invaluable when markets turn chaotic and emotions run high. Trust in trading isn't built through complexity, it's forged through clarity and reinforced through repetition. This revelation often marks a turning point in a trader's evolution, the moment when uncertainty begins to transform into conviction. When your system is built on clear price behavior with just 1 or 2 confirmations, you develop an intuitive understanding that transcends mechanical rule following. Consider the difference between recognizing a friend's face and trying to describe that face to a stranger. The Kaya suit. Recognition is instant, requiring no conscious analysis. You simply know. This same intuitive recognition develops when you've witnessed your setup play out hundreds of times. You don't flinch under pressure because the pattern is so deeply embedded in your consciousness that validation becomes automatic. I discovered this truth after years of overcomplicating my approach. Each additional indicator, each new filter, each extra confirmation didn't make me more confident. It made me less so. My watershed moment came when I stripped everything back to pure price action and volume. Suddenly, I could see the market's intentions with startling clarity. This wasn't regression. It was advancement, the kind that comes from removing obstacles rather than adding tools. The profound insight here is that conviction doesn't come from having an infallible system. It comes from having a simple system you understand completely. When you know exactly when a trade is valid and precisely when it's invalid, you eliminate the gray area where doubt thrives. This binary clarity becomes your anchor during market turbulence. Yet most traders resist this path because simplicity feels insufficient. They believe more variables must equal more accuracy. This misconception leads to the second critical principle. Confidence grows from repetition, not constant reinvention. Every time you change your trading method, you reset your learning curve. You erase valuable data and start again from zero. This pattern of perpetual reinvention keeps traders trapped in the novice phase indefinitely. They mistake motion for progress, variety for improvement. Think about any master craftsman, a concert pianist, a surgeon, a martial artist. Did they achieve excellence by constantly changing their fundamental approach? No. They identified core principles and refined them through thousands of repetitions. The blacksmith doesn't forge a different tool every day. He hammers the same piece of iron until he understands the subtle language of metal and fire. Trading mastery follows this same universal pattern. The market rewards the trader who applies a consistent method long enough to develop genuine understanding. Through repetition, you begin noticing subtle nuances invisible to the casual observer. How volume behaves before a genuine breakout. How price respects certain levels during specific market conditions. How momentum builds before significant moves. This deepening awareness doesn't come from intellectual comprehension, but from experiential knowledge, the kind that can only be acquired through seeing the same patterns play out hundreds of times. The uncomfortable truth is that most traders sabotage this process through impatience, abandoning strategies before they've collected enough data to understand their true performance characteristics. Let's explore the psychological barriers that prevent traders from embracing simplicity and how overcoming these barriers leads to a trading approach that generates consistent results rather than occasional wins. Type mastery through repetition in the comments if you've recognized how constantly changing systems has prevented you from developing true trading expertise. The greatest misconception in trading is that simplicity somehow equals limitation. Most traders operate under the false belief that complexity equates to sophistication, that a chart crowded with indicators reflects deeper understanding than one with clean price action. This illusion keeps countless talented individuals trapped in a cycle of inconsistency. What I've witnessed in my own journey and observed in others who've achieved sustainable success is precisely the opposite. True mastery doesn't result in increasingly complex systems. It results in radical simplicity. This isn't regression, but the natural evolution of expertise. It's what remains after you've stripped away everything that doesn't matter. Think about any field of human achievement. The novice musician plays with technical flourish to mask fundamental weaknesses. The master plays only the essential notes, knowing exactly which ones create the deepest impact. The beginning writer uses flowery language and complex structures. The master communicates profound ideas with stark simplicity. This pattern repeats across every domain of mastery. A trader with a simple method isn't lacking sophistication. They've refined their approach through a crucible of experience. They've tested complexity and found it wanting. They've discovered, often through painful lessons, that consistency emerges not from having more variables, but from executing a few principles flawlessly. This revelation creates a freedom that few traders ever experience. Instead of constantly chasing the next indicator or system, you can focus your energy on perfecting execution. Your mind clears, your decisions sharpen, your results stabilize, not because the market becomes more predictable, but because your behavior does. The hidden truth beneath this principle connects directly to the fundamental nature of markets themselves. The market isn't nearly as confusing as people make it. When you strip away all the commentary, opinions, and excessive analysis, price only does three things. It goes up, it goes down, or it consolidates. That's it. Everything else is interpretation layered on top. Most traders spend their careers adding filters, indicators, opinions, and forecasts until they can't even remember what they were looking for in the first place. They create confusion where clarity could exist. They mistake complexity for insight when it's actually a barrier to understanding. Complexity doesn't make you more accurate, it makes you slower and more uncertain. When you have a dozen variables to check before making a decision, you inevitably hesitate. That hesitation costs you optimal entries, forces you into chasing momentum, and creates internal conflict that manifests as inconsistent execution. Clarity, on the other hand, cuts through this noise like a laser through fog. It gives you the conviction to act decisively when everyone else is frozen with uncertainty. When you're clear about what constitutes a valid setup and what doesn't, trading transforms from a guessing game into a probability-based business. The most profound transformation in my trading occurred when I stopped asking, "What's going to happen next?" and started asking, "What's happening right now? And what does my system tell me to do about it?" This shift from prediction to reaction eliminated an enormous mental burden and allowed me to focus exclusively on execution. Let's examine how this principle of clarity manifests in the actual day-to-day decisions that separate consistently profitable traders from the perpetually struggling masses. Share clarity creates conviction in the comments. If you've recognized how cutting through market noise has been essential to improving your trading decisions. If you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who values substance over noise in your trading journey. That's increasingly rare in a world where most content creators are selling complexity as a solution. What I've shared today isn't flashy, but it's the foundation that's allowed traders like me to survive and thrive through decades of market cycles. The path to consistency isn't found through more indicators or more sophisticated systems. It's found through clarity, simplicity, and the discipline to execute the same high-quality process day after day. Remember, the market doesn't reward creativity. It rewards consistency. If this approach resonates with you, if you're tired of the endless cycle of system hopping and looking for a more sustainable path forward, I genuinely appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. I'm committed to sharing trading wisdom that cuts through the industry noise and focuses on what actually works. Drop "clarity found" in the comments if this message was meant for you today. Your comment helps me understand which content truly connects with serious traders, allowing me to create more of what actually helps you improve. And if you found value in today's discussion, that like button is the simplest way to help other traders discover this approach. Each like extends this message to someone else who might be struggling with the same challenges you've faced. I've put together a video right here that expands on how to identify those 2 key confirmations we discussed today. Click through and continue with me there to see exactly how I implement this principle in real-time market conditions. Until next time, Remember, in markets, as in life, the most powerful solutions are often the simplest ones.